Good evening. This is the February 6th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission, meeting in Town Council Chambers. It is now 7:01 p.m. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And will the Commission please introduce yourself, starting on my right?
Ronald Schneider, alternate.
Dominic Panicia, alternate.
Robert Westland, alternate.
Leanne Ambrosi, Commissioner.
William Porter, Chairman.
Ryan Condon, Commissioner.
Michael Riley, Vice Chairman.
Will Gresta, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Rick Schultz, Town Planner. Thank you. Looks like we're short one person. Who are we? Bruno. Who are we seating until he shows up, if he shows up?
That's Snyder. You rotate. Snyder. It's Snyder. Ron.
Ron, you're seated for tonight's meeting until Bruno shows up. Organizational and administrative matters, we have none. Item number 4, general public participation. Is there anyone here who would like to address the commission on an issue that's not related to a public hearing or an open application? Seeing none. Item number 5, general appointments, we have none. Public hearings. Okay, instructions for public hearings. There are 2 sets of microphones for both public address and recording of the proceedings. Due to the need for recording, it is important to stand at the microphone at all times and speak into it loudly and clearly in order that everyone in the room can hear and to capture what is being said. Individuals speaking from the seats will not be heard and will not be recognized to speak. Order of the hearing of an application. Points of order and responses will be entertained. Exhibits will be read for the record. Applicant and or representatives will present the application and will answer commission questions. The floor will be open to those in favor. The floor will be open to those opposed. The floor will be open to general comments or questions. The floor will be open to the applicant, who may take the opportunity for closing remarks or rebuttal, after which discussion will close. The applicant or his representatives are the final speakers. No comment shall be accepted from anyone unless recognized by the chair. All questions and comments shall be addressed to the chair, who will determine if an answer shall be provided and by whom. There shall be absolutely no discussion between speakers and the audience. The Commission has no intention to limit the right of any person to speak, but asks that speakers try not to be repetitive. Please try to present new information. If something has been said before, the Commission would invite you to indicate your agreement with previous speakers. At no time shall there be displays of emotion such as applause, cheering, shouting, or similar noise. This is critical as this hearing is being recorded. If this happens, you will be cautioned. A vote or demonstration by a show of hands, standing by the audience, or similar action will not be recognized. All parties are requested not to talk between themselves while the hearing is in progress. If you feel the need to talk, please step out into the lobby. All speakers, when recognized, must advance to the microphone to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. The chairman reserves the right to cut off discussion if it is not relevant to the application or is presented in an inappropriate manner. This is a legal proceeding, much the same as what would occur in a courtroom setting. We request that all parties observe the proper decorum that would be observed in that setting. Please turn off all cell phones or similar devices. If you have a need to use these devices, please leave the room and use them outside. Oh, okay. Okay, first up, we have item number 6, 6-95-S-A1, file number 1254A, 67 Cross Hill Road, RF1 District. Commissioner Maini, I think you're going to recuse yourself?
I am.
Okay.
I'm here, by the way.
If you don't mind leaving the room.
I'm out of here. I was here, I should say.
Okay, Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearing to be held February 6, 2020. In accordance with Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-7D, a public hearing will be held in the Monroe Town Hall, 7 Fan Hill Road, Monroe, Connecticut, on Thursday, February 6, 2020, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, concerning the following: 6-95-S-A1, file number 1254A, 67 Cross Hill Road, RF1 District. Special exception permit, site development plan permit approval amendment modification application submitted by Little League Baseball of Monroe Incorporated, applicant owner, seeking to change the permitted hours of field use on Saturdays and Sundays to be earlier and longer as follows. On Monday through Friday, current permitted hours 4 p.m. to sunset, no later than 8:30 p.m. Proposed change, none. Saturdays, currently permitted 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Proposed 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sundays, currently permitted 12:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. Proposed change 9 a.m. to sunset. Complete details and copies of all related materials associated with the above matters are on file and available for viewing in the Monroe Planning and Zoning Department offices. That public notice was in the view on 2 separate occasions. Will, what do we have for exhibits?
Exhibit 1, permit approval amendment modification application. Exhibit 2, original SEP approval and aerial photo. Exhibit 3, public comment letter. Exhibit 4, abutting notice, mail receipts, and green cards. That is all.
Is there anyone here representing the applicant? Okay.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Fulcino, 48 Arrowhead Drive. I am a part of Monroe Little League Baseball as the travel coordinator. What we're presenting to you is really the change for Sunday. And the main reason behind the change, or the request for the change, is that, quite frankly, we've run out of space. We have a growing program. We run it in conjunction, the travel program for baseball, we run it in conjunction with Little League. All town kids. 3 years ago we started it. We started with 2 teams. Last year we were at 3 teams. Now we're at 4 teams. And for those who don't know, travel baseball has certain field requirements that are outside of the Little League size fields. So Little League plays at a 46-60 base paths to pitching mounds. And you know, your Major League Baseball would play 60-foot mounds, right, and 90-foot base paths. What travel does is kind of an in-between bridge, and it allows for 50-70 because it's quite a jump when you go from a big. So that being said, the town doesn't have any 50-70 fields. So what we've done at Beardsley between the 2 fields at our cost is to expand them so we can use the travel, play travel games there. But being that we house Little League and now travel, which is expanding with the number of kids, we really need the Sunday schedule to permit everybody to play there. And what we're really after is, you know, this is not year-round. You know, we're looking for the window between really the end of April to the 1st of July. So this is not a year-round thing. This is a small window, and it would be just for Sundays is the real change. Saturday, I think we asked 10 o'clock. But if you look at, you know, Wolf Park, we're no different than, I think the schedule that we're at, the Sunday schedule is no different than what the town would have, you know, be open for play at, say, Wolf Park, where you could, you know, start games at 9 o'clock there. So what we're asking is something very similar.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, hold on. Anybody have questions? So
So this is just our kids, right? Or the other towns?
Yep, we are, the reason we do it in conjunction with Monroe Little League is so that we recognize the need for a higher advanced level of play baseball within Monroe. And we did it in conjunction with Little League so that we could work together and keep the kids and not be in conflict with Little League. So these are all Monroe kids. We are a 100% volunteer program, non-for-profit. And like I said, this is really out of the necessity because we don't have town fields that we could use in addition to our own.
Dominic?
I have no question.
My question is regards to electronics. Is there going to be any kind of amplified electronics over and above what's being used now?
No, all we have is a scoreboard. We don't have any kind of auditory, system to make announcements, anything like that. So, it is.
No lighting provisions?
No, all it is we have 2 scoreboards.
Yeah.
Three, sorry.
Thank you.
So you're trying to say this is only a short-term thing, like from April to
Well,
May?
the travel window, which is, we're doing this to address travel baseball.
Right.
So that window is really played April to July, and it ends during that window.
And why do you need such long hours, like on Sunday? Why are you trying to go to fit in more games, or?
Well, because we try not to conflict with Little League. Little League plays Saturdays.
Right.
So those fields are pretty much predominantly used for Saturday for Little League. So Sunday is the obvious day that we would be able to use Beardsley for games and allow us usually the way it works is you're scheduled 2 games per team. They do it in a way to get more games in, so they double headers. So the ability to play 2 double headers would allow not all of our teams to play, but at least be able to host home games.
And what's the average time a game?
The set rules for the games, no, they can't start an inning after 1 hour and 45 minutes for the games. So, the games are 2 hours or less per game.
And so you're saying a max of 4 games, then, is what you're saying, right?
Per day, yeah. For the most part, yeah. Most of the time, we're gonna have 2. On a Sunday specifically, we're just talking about a Sunday, most of the times we would be, two teams would be home, 2 teams would be away.
Okay, so you're asking for, how many hours are you asking for on that day, then? You're
Well,
asking
we're asking for a Sunday to be just like Saturday. And
No,
the
I
ability.
understand that, but, you have to take.
7 hours more. For 2 teams? Come on.
It's not 7 hours more. We're asking,
Excuse me, please.
Sorry.
Right.
our current hours, I believe, are 12:30 Sunday till 6 or 6:30.
So that's like 7 hours already.
Correct.
So you're trying.
What we're asking is for an additional 3, right?
You're saying the sunset, right?
I believe that's the application, yes. I mean, we don't necessarily need that amount of time. We were just trying to make it as easy as possible to make it similar to Saturday, just to make it the same as Saturday.
Right. But we have.
Well, I mean, we're open to, I just want to make the application as easy as possible.
Right.
We're
No, I
open
understand, that's
to-
why I was trying to ask you, that you're saying.
We don't need the entire day, but I mean, it's
Right,
easier
but
to
you-
get games
I'm
in.
saying that basically it's an 8-hour window is what you're saying if you have 4 games. If you have a doubleheader, because it can't be no more than 8 hours, right?
Correct, but
And
don't
right now,
forget.
you're at like 7.5 hours.
Right, don't forget, we're talking about daylight. A lot of times we can't get games in because it gets dark too fast, especially early in the season.
Okay. But I'm saying, but right now it's the 6:30, right, or something like that? Is that right? Isn't it the 6:30 on Sunday?
Yeah,
6 PM.
on Sunday is not 6 o'clock, on Sunday is 4 o'clock,
Okay.
5 o'clock.
No, the hours are Monday through Friday, 4 PM to sunset, no later than 8:30 PM. Saturdays, 9:30 AM to 7 PM, and Sundays, 12:30 PM to 6 PM. That's pursuant to the I think 1995 or 96 SEP approval from the commission,
And you guys want to move that to sunset and opening at what time?
9 AM.
Okay.
Any other
so-
questions?
No, I'm good.
Ryan?
I kind of just asked mine, so I'm good.
And the fields at Wolf Park aren't long enough. so-
They're not outfitted for, that, like I said, the 50-70 field. The only field that could permit it would be Wolf Park 4, and that has been, when the attempts on our part to get that field have been unsuccessful because of the softball program uses that for virtually all of their programming.
There are no fields in any of the schools?
No.
And you tried to get the softball field?
Yes,
And who'd you go through that?
Parks and Rec. They would have to, it would be an additional expense because they don't have we'd have to put in the proper length base pass. But, I mean, we would, like I said, we would be competing. Someone would be without a field if we were to, as on the softball side. If we were to take Wolf Park 4 away or use it for our needs,
Your needs, well, you're saying you need it for on a Sunday, really, right?
And that field has no vacant time on Sunday?
I can't speak to the scheduling because I don't make it, but I know to our requests, we've been told that softball has that exclusively.
Okay. Staff have anything? Nope.
What's the reason why it's 12:30 now and not 9?
That's their original approval from back in 1995.
There's really no rhyme or reason to it.
Well, it's probably related because it's Sunday.
I mean, what we're asking for is the ability to grow, right? You know, I don't, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but year after year, the last 3 years, we've grown. And, you know, we feel like we need this space to, because we feel like we're gonna continue to grow. And I don't want it to come back, you know, and ask for additional time when we do that.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Anybody?
Yeah, I got one more. It's travel baseball. When you go to other towns and play, what are the start times there?
We start as early as 9 o'clock. And, you know, we play all over the state.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's open the floor up to some public input, and then we'll call you back. Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Name and address for the microphone, at the microphone, please.
Good evening. My name is Dave Delicato. I'm at 3 Evergreen Lane. And I've been involved in the Monroe baseball program now for about 7 years. And one of the areas we've seen a growth in Little League in this town. And obviously we don't want to put a smush on that because obviously it's such a great event for the kids. And there's only, again, like you said, there's only one field we can play in that has the ability at Wolf Park. And this year, we've put in a travel program, which is the first time we've had 4 age groups. That's 9, 10, 11, 12. That's never happened before. So you have another 60 or 70 kids that are playing in a competitive baseball league where, if you know Monroe, the district that we're in, for Little League, is probably the toughest district in the state. You play against the Fairfields of Westport. So we're building in a program where we can be competitive, where Monroe now, for the first time in the last 3 or 4 years, is a competitive team in these tournaments. And that's one of the options that we've done to sort of build it. So there has never been, you know, if there are any issues, we hold a 9-year-old tournament at Beardsley every single year where we have hundreds of people, and there's never been any issues with, you know, with traffic or any sort of issue. So it's just a way that we're expanding. We just need to, if not, we're gonna have to, you know, take another field or something like that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this application?
James Londano, 36 Great Ring Road. So I am the treasurer of Monroe Little League. I've been the treasurer for several years now. Just, I'm not going to try to repeat what they said, but as far as the timing goes on Sundays, keep in mind that, when we're talking these games are about 2 hours, there's also transition time in between, when, teams coming off the field and teams getting on the field and warming up. And also just, want to say that this is fully volunteer. This is all, run by parents. The coaches are all volunteer. We're a nonprofit. We also, as a Little League, donate a lot of time and to other charities and other organizations within the town. So we try to support other organizations within the town as well. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of the application?
Pat LaBella, 3 Stonecroft Way, Monroe, past president of Monroe Little League. And just to reiterate a little bit also on that timing thing, games are about 2 hours, and we also maintain our own fields, so we get about an hour in between. So you play the 2 games, then it'll take about an hour, get the field ready for the next 2 games. So, that 8 hours is really a 9-hour window. So, also a little history, Field 4 at Wolf Park used to be able to be 50-70, but we went in this year to try to get it for baseball, and we were told that the pegs were all removed by Russ, and it is softball only now. So they basically told us no chance to play there. So, and that's about it. So,
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Stephen O'Hara, 15 Belleville Street, Monroe. I am the safety chair for Monroe Little League. Unfortunately, I'm the 4th person to speak, so they've said everything that I would have said, but I just want to note that I am in favor of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor?
Good evening. John Richer, 3 Founders Way in Monroe. My sons are both participants in the Monroe Travel Program after playing Little League for many years. Just want to say that, in an era when everybody talks about kids not getting outside and stuff, I think it's really important to give them as many opportunities as we can and not put a damper on that. It's one of the reasons we moved to Monroe is the great facilities that we have here. And then I also just like to point out, I think it was mentioned, we maintain all the fields at Beardsley, which is in contrast to most of the towns we play in. So the town gets a great benefit, or saves a considerable amount of money on the backs of everybody that volunteers there versus having to spend town funds to maintain the fields. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Okay, before we move on, we received one letter from a resident who wanted to speak in opposition. By way of introduction, my name is Bernadette Seguro, and I reside at 22 Craig Drive, Monroe, and I am reaching out to all of you in response to the zoning notice I received yesterday regarding Beardsley Field and the request from Monroe Little League to expand the allowable playing hours. Please accept this email as submission of our comments to this proposal, which my husband and I do not support. Further to this comment, I would like to also be clear that our response on this zoning submission does not reflect our opinion on the importance of participation in youth sports and the impact it has on the boys and girls in our community. My family and are all living examples of how youth sports can shape you, form lasting friendships, build opportunities, and create a lasting impact that will carry you through many areas of life. In no way should this response be misinterpreted on our belief and strong support over the years of the many youth sports programs in our area. On that note, please accept our input that the Beardsley Field should comply with the standard hours that have been in place since we have lived in our property for over 20 years. Our home abuts field number 2, and we have been respectful neighbors while dealing with multiple issues over the years, from traffic safety concerns on our roads, significant noise, blowing of horns, noisemakers, excessive screaming, etc., disregard for our property with littering and trespassing to get access to the field, and more. Please maintain the current system that is in place to allow for continued quality of life and harmonious relations within the neighborhood. This request for the extension of hours and flexibility with scheduling should transfer to Parks and Recreation and the multiple fields at Wolf Park and Great Hollow Park where there is ample parking, it is safe for all attendees, and is true appropriate venue for the baseball program. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you, Bernadette and Scott Sodora. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
So,
Have your name and address, please.
my name is Lud Johnson, and I am on 6 Craig Drive, which is on the map. I'm thankful that you sent out the notice for us to basically make comments on this. There are 8 of us here tonight who live in this community, and we do have some concerns. I would disagree strongly with the people who have said there is no traffic problems. There are considerable traffic problems. But as a result of getting the notice, I went around and I did a survey. Now, I'm hoping that I'm in time for this, and I basically talked to 22 of the neighbors, all of the people on that. By the way, 8 of them are here, and they'll probably be up talking too. I have a signed petition from each of the 22 people who said they would prefer not to have this approved. I'm hoping that I can leave it with you.
Mr. Agresta, please.
There's a, excuse me, there's a great deal of problems with this field. And trust me, I've lived here for 38 years, okay? When I moved in here, you only played on Monday through Friday. You did not play on weekends, okay? That was in 1982. I've also got some other copies. I visited Will down at the department. Your file was a little bit light on, I think, documentation. The only thing you appeared to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will, is the 1995 special exception. I have here, because the person who lived in the house beside me left his record with me when he left. I have here the first original, basically, permit that was allowed. Oops, I gave the wrong one to you. Here's that. Can I have that one back? And I will give you that later. Basically, the original one from 1971, which allowed baseball to be played there. Then I have the 2 court cases, if you're not familiar with this. In 1975, basically, the Little League, and I know this because it's referred to in the 1995 special exception, that it goes back to this particular document. So in 1975, after the Little League built 3 fields there, they were told they couldn't build 3 fields. They played on Saturdays, and basically that was wrong for them to play. So they basically took them to court. There's a Supreme Court ruling, which I have the copies of here, in 1975. There's been another Supreme Court ruling in 1982. In 1982, the Little League decided that they would change their name to its now current name. And they changed their name and basically started playing whenever they wanted to. The neighbors and the plaintiffs got to, I'm moving in this year, but the ones who are there before me get together, they bring another case, it's upheld. The Little League had to pay a fine, pay the legal fees. They were supposed to go back from 82 to 95, playing only on Monday through Friday. 95, they're allowed. They're allowed to play from 12:30 to 7. They want to increase it by 6 hours on Sunday, not 7, is what I thought. They want to include it by 6 hours. When you look at their play time, realize that people come a half an hour to an hour early. So all of us in the neighborhood on Sundays will now see people showing up at about 7 or 8, about 8 o'clock, 8:30. Now, the facilities, okay, it's a charming facility that was donated by Alice Beardsley in 1963 or 1965. This is not a facility that is really designed for baseball in its current needs as it stands today. It is It's a bit too small. The parking is way too small, which means that cars park on Craig Drive. You see that road of Craig Drive? There have been times when cars park on both sides of that. Big playoff game, the cars park here. In the baseball field, you see a little bit of parking. The Little League is a big business. Their 990 form produced $650,000 worth of revenue, according to their 990 form, for the 5 years ending 2017. If the town tried to put up parking like this, there's no marking, there's no marking, there's no handicap parking. There's one exit out of that. That road, if you drive down Cross Hill Road, if any of you live here, you probably know, that's a speed trap. Basically, people come flying down that hill. You cannot see that entranceway. And when you're coming up, it's not safe. It's not safe. People park on a regular, I have photos. I had to call the cops. That whole section of Craig Drive and more. There were cars on each side of it, virtually making the road a one-way driveway. People couldn't come. It was a madhouse. I had to call the police. I called the police. They came down. The police officer shows up, and basically he immediately calls for backup. And he's trying to direct traffic, and basically then 2 more policemen come. They go down to the field. They round up the people. They start getting. The other guy is dishing out tickets because they're parked so that they're hanging over Cross Hill Road. I mean, they're hanging out on it. Now, I mean, I hate to say this, okay, but never once in my 38 years, and most of our pros, have we ever been approached by the Little League as an entity that they care about. They have 15 board members. Not one board member is neighborhood relations, okay? So I know I sound a little bit upset. We go through this all the time. So if they start at 9, at 8:30, they start showing up. Now, oftentimes there's 6 cars parked in front of my house. I happen to be the first house there and probably in the worst location. The guy on the other side of the street is here. He may talk about it as well. We get 6 cars parking there. Sometimes you talk to them. They don't want to park in the parking lot because it's too congested. It's a zoo. When you go into the parking lot, there's kids walking all over the parking lot. There's people with lawn chairs. It's cute, but it's not safe, okay? So they park there. We open up till now, till sunset. It says sunset. It doesn't even, in the old days it used to say 8:30 or till sunset, whichever is earlier. People, if you walk down that road, Cross Hill Road, if you walk down that road, you're taking your life in your hands. That is very dangerous. So we feel that there's a couple of reasons. I'm going to go a little bit into I'm glad that somebody offered the PA issue. For a while, they bought a PA, and this is a neighborhood. That house, the first house there, that's 150 feet from the pitcher's mound. I'm 250 feet from the pitcher's mound. 250 feet is not a lot of distance when you have maybe 100 people there screaming, and frankly, a lot of it is the parents you hear screaming. But now they break into cheers and they cheer for them. Yes, I understand that. Frankly, I played baseball. I love baseball. I actually like the field. I think it's quaint, but it's really a detriment to the neighborhood. And what we are recommending, so I talked to 22 people. I got a group of people. We came up with a whole lot of recommendations. We have some very serious questions about the legality of what they're doing, which we hope to work through with you folks. But in essence, we implore you not to let it go to Sunday. I can just see a family coming up the street with 2 kids in lawn chairs, because that's what they do, walking up the street, and it's almost dark on Cross Hill Road. And it's an accident waiting to happen. Noise, I don't know what you can do about it, but thank God they don't have a PA system, but I swear that there's parents that have them built into their throats. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's the rest of it.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Before I start, the gentleman said that they take care of the fields.
Could we just first have your name and address
Oh,
for
I'm
the...
sorry. Tino Mudaffri, 59 Cross Hill Road. The gentleman said that they take care of the fields.
Could you give that to Will, please?
I would like everybody to see it. Pass it and see, that's how they take care of the field. I've been in Monroe since 1968. The Little League field was there. My son was 3 years old at the time. I said, great, I don't have to drive my son to play Little League when the time came. And back in what did you say, it was 75 or 81, that Mr. Green and the other neighbor took Little League to court. They won the case. You guys don't talk past before 1995. If I remember correct, 1995, then Tuba was the planner of the town. And Mr. Tuba, unfortunately, I don't like to say this, but he thought that he was the king of Monroe. Anything that he wanted to do, he did. So he took it upon himself and went against the court ruling, and he allowed Little League to play Saturday and Sunday. He allowed to put a big scoreboard, which is residential. The scoreboard should not have been there. Started to go up, I called Mrs. Bernaska, Karen Bernaska, and I says, Karen, by the way, I've been on Parks and Recreation for 30 years, okay? And so I called Karen Bernaska and says, Karen, what the hell is going on? Putting up a scoreboard? So I said, Tino, I'll get back to you. So she gets back to me and she says, I talked to Dan Tuba, and Dan Tuba said the scoreboard is part of Little League, so it's okay. Who was Dan Tuba to go over the court ruling? Then Dan Tuba let them do whatever they wanted. And the reason why we don't have the fields, I see all these young faces, they don't know what went on before. The reason why we don't have the fields in town is because planning and zoning. As I said, I was on Parks and Recreation for 30 years. We've been trying to get fields. In fact, there's some fields there, the money has been allocated for. The design is all done, and you guys, the chairman before you, Patrick, put the stops because of the parking lot, the overflow parking lot. He didn't like the way it was. So we could have the fields if it was up to planning and zoning to say, go ahead and do it. If you can move that to Wolf Park, I'll show you where the fields are being.
I'm well aware where the fields are.
Okay,
Without the
what is
park-
stopping to
without the
building the?
parking, you would have the same situation over by Wolf Park that you have on Craig
Yeah,
Drive.
but it's not a residential area. It's not a residential area.
Right.
Look what I am.
Anyway,
I
let's
see-
focus on Beardsley Field.
Okay, as I said, I'm the first house next to the driveway. There used to be a driveway way down at the other end, and then they decided to move it. I see people urinate in the woods there. I said, what are you doing there? Oh, I'm looking for a ball, and he's there urinating in my yard. Is that okay? I pick up garbage because they're too lazy to walk down and put it in a garbage can. So they park by their cars, they have their whatever they're drinking, and throw the cans. And the next day I gotta go and pick it up. And as Mr. Johnson said, it's very, very dangerous to have one driveway and 60, 70 cars try to get in and out. So something I don't think, and by the way, the other thing that I meant to say was, Sunday, I would like to have at least one day to myself, or a relaxing day. I'm paying taxes not to listen to parents, not little leaguers, but the parents make more noise than the kids. I can even sit in my backyard, on my porch, and enjoy myself. And you saw the picture. I can wash my car today. The next day, I have to bring it back to the car wash. They have water there. They could wet the field before they drag it. No, too lazy. You saw that picture. Would you accept that? If your neighbor did that, what would you do? Would you call the cops? Would you put a stop to it? I can't do it. Speaking of policemen, there are batting cages there. During the week, high school kids come there, they unravel the chain, open the gate, they go in, and bang, bang, bang. They use the batting cages. I never saw a little leaguer play in those batting cages. It's there for the Babe Ruth kids. It's there for the high school kids. So it's not just those hours. It's during the week, too. That place is occupied every day. So I think that at least that's, first of all, I would, before you guys vote, that the town attorney should look at whatever Mr. Johnson gave you, because they are completely breaking every single rule that the court has made. So be careful before you vote and give them the okay. I believe that the town attorney should look at those papers before you guys vote. Make sure that they are in compliance to what the judge or the courts have ruled back in 1983 or 85. Okay? And unfortunately, Mr. Tuba is not with us anymore, but I hope that there is not another guy that do whatever you want. Because Mr. Tuba that's why we're in the situation that we are now. Because Mr. Tuba let them do whatever they wanted, and they gave him a little bit, and they took more and more and more, and that's why now we're on Sundays. Okay, so I don't know what else to say, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And before you vote, do some soul searching, okay?
Thank
For
you.
the neighbors. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
My name is Scott Sidora. I live at 22 Craig Drive. I've been a resident of town all my life. I actually played in those fields when I was 3. We were not allowed to play on the weekends. There was a court order, we were not allowed. You only played on the weekdays. It was from 4 o'clock till about dark, 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock if it was late. We moved in probably 1999, give or take, a year, and they were playing there on the weekends. It's progressively gotten worse. I've even called a few times to the police department about the loudspeakers and about the cowbells and all the other stuff. I work midnights a lot being a police officer. I don't want to call the police officers because they have to do the work now and they have other stuff to deal with than rowdy parents, and but I was forced to work. 8:30 in the morning, having loudspeakers playing music. It's hard on a Sunday morning, and I don't get too many myself on a Sunday morning. Be home sleeping in, but everyone in the neighborhood here, we face it weekly, and it's not just spring till July 1st. It's July 1st all the way till just about November, because they play fall ball there. And on the weekends. I don't know if it's part of Little League or not, but fall ball is there all the way through till November 1st. We want to have a day for ourselves. We want to be quiet. I'm probably the biggest sport supporter out there. My whole family, my kids play there. I played there. We love to see the kids playing there. We have no problem with them playing there. But you got to respect the neighborhood, respect the people who live there. You know, unfortunately, they all go home, so they don't know what's going on there every day. They come to play the game, and they're off. But we're there every day, and we have to listen to it. And at the intersection of Cross Hill and Craig Drive, the town kind of alleviated it. They started putting no parking signs there, but you couldn't get a fire truck through if they had to. Impossible. On the days they have big games on the weekends, especially when they have those travel tournaments in July into August. So we don't support it. We hope that you guys think about the residents and stop them from trying to expand their hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening, everybody. Rich Buellman, 5 Craig Drive. First house on the left as you're pulling to Craig Drive. Not to repeat what Scott said and what Lud said, but to just kind of expand a little bit. My biggest issue is again, I've been here 30 years now, and I coached in Monroe Little League. My kids played. I was on the board for a bit. I'm still high school. I believe strongly in athletics. I believe strongly in young kids should be doing something to make sure they're out of the house. And I can't agree with that any more strongly. I think that's one of the best things we have going now is still youth sports and the chance to go out and play and be in a group in a sports setting. But with that being said, I've got to kind of agree with Scott that I should be retired, but I'm not. I'm still working hard, still doing, paying tuitions, doing whatever I have to do. And honestly, I moved here from the Stanford area some 30, 35 years ago. Fell in love with it. Still love Monroe. Most people that I know have kind of moved and moved on and done whatever. I still love it here. I love the property, love my house. But during that one span, which is usually, I would say Scott's kind of right. It's just not April to July. It goes on a little bit longer. My weekends is the one time I get to see friends and family. I can't even have anybody park in front of my house. I can fit so many in my driveway, but then after that, there's nowhere to park. And they can't park across the street where Mr. Johnson lives, because like Scott said, they're lined up pretty much almost 3 houses down. And as far as the Sunday morning things, gosh, I'm not an air conditioning guy. We kind of like to keep the windows open, and I know what time it says that starts. But man, I hear the aluminum bat and the balls and whatever as early as 7:45, 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And like Scott said, sometimes you just want that day. I don't work nights like he does, but Sunday's usually the one day I get. And then on top of that, the weekends is the only time I get to go cut my grass. I go out there, I'm picking up plastic cups, picking up beer cans, I'm picking up, some cases, diaper bags. It's been there, but it's really an inconvenience in an area that now is not a calf pasture anymore. It's a residential area, it's a great street, it's a great road, that whole area is wonderful. And I just think it just kind of, it brings that whole thing down, and just want you to take that into consideration when you're thinking about what you're going to do as far as voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Nancy Contasesi. I live on 28 Craig Drive. And I agree with all that's been said, except that they walk through your property to get into their cars. The screaming and yelling never ends when they're there. I have nothing against kids playing ball, but we do live in a residential area, and it has really gotten out of control. Sunday is the only day, I'm a working person, Sunday is the only day that we look forward to have peace and quiet, and we definitely do not have it. So I hope that this does not get any worse than how it is, and personally, the weekends should be closed, so we, people who live on Craig Drive and that whole area, can have some peace and quiet. We pay our taxes, we have the right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Mario Adona, and we live at 398 Moose Hill Road. The reason I'm opposed to it is the same as, to piggyback what they've said. People constantly park on the side of our property. My wife usually goes out there every now and then picking up the trash. I don't see people from the Little League who run it picking up trash out there. It shouldn't be our job to go out there and pick up the trash that people leave behind when they park. Sunday is my only day off. That I normally work in retail. That's the day I have a chance to really enjoy it with my grandkids and sleep in a little bit. That's the only reason why I'm opposed to it. I just want to relax, have a day to myself. Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? Last call. Okay, anyone who has any general questions or comments? Okay, back to the applicant. Okay.
There's been occasions when again, as I said.
Just your name and address.
Again,
please.
Tina Modafferi, 59 Cross Hill Road. There's been occasions when older kids, as I mentioned before, play ball there and they use language they should not be using, and my wife and I would be sitting on our porch, and I go there and say, hey, guys, go up at the park, play there, and they tell me where to go. So I call the cops, and you know what they tell me? Nothing I can do. It's private property. They can do whatever they want there. I don't think that's right. I would like also that somewhere, somehow, that the police department would have some kind of hourly, who belongs there, who does not belong there. If I have a problem with some older kids, teenagers being there, that I can call them and the police can say, guys, take a walk. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Lud Johnson, 6 Craig Drive. I was so nervous I forgot a couple things. We talked a little bit about legality, and I mean, it's not an idle threat. The reason that I provided that literature to Will, and of course I'm not a lawyer, so I'm about to look into this. I've only known about it for 5 days. But the 1995 special permit says these are the hours. That's really all it deals with. And then it points back to the previous one, and it says all other things will be intact from this, the other previous one. So it's a little difficult. I have a previous one which basically says things like, you will make sure you have proper policing. And by that, I would think proper policing. Now, the estimate, if you take 200 games and you say there's 9 kids on each team and there's 2 teams and so forth, you come up, it's 12,000 cars going in and out of that parking lot on a 4-month period. Proper policing, and it's at certain times, you heard me talk about and you heard us all talk about the cars parking up there. Where are the police? In that original one, the Little League was responsible for policing the area when it was appropriate. So if you're playing practice and there's a couple of kids, but if you've got hundreds of cars going back and forth, you should have police on that. Second of all, compliance. It's clear here. Now, in 1995, not one of us, and you heard some old timers here, we've all been here, not one of us knew anything about the 1995 change. There was never a record. It was done. I don't know how it was done, but I have a copy of the 1995 letter that was sent to the president of basically the Little League team, and it said these were the hours. I also have a copy of the schedule that he sent out, and fortunately this is the one that I got from my file, from my neighbor. He sent out to the baseball community that violated that. The season hadn't even started, and he was starting an hour and a half early, whoever he was, and he was ending at different times. Compliance is an issue, and that's something, I think Joe does that in the planning and zoning. Compliance is an issue we have to talk about, because frankly, it appears as though they're always there. That's what we've said before. It appears that they're always there. From 95 on, it just seems like there's more and more games. There's more and more games. So those are two other issues that I wanted you just to be aware of in relationship to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a general question or comment?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Richer. I am a mother of 2 baseball players, and I'm also newly on the Monroe Little League, Monroe Baseball and Softball Board as the,
Please.
I'm so sorry, 3 Founders Way. I just wanted to, first of all, what they describe sounds horrific, but it also doesn't sound like what I have witnessed firsthand attending many baseball games. While there may be loud yelling, I have never heard negative language. It is all very positive and is nothing inappropriate. As a fairly conservative mom, I would shut down anything if I heard anything inappropriate. So I just wanted to say, I think that it's being characterized as just in a very negative light, when that is not at all what is the reality of what's happening at Beardsley. It's a very positive experience. We do have a 9-year-old tournament every summer, and my husband and I were happy to be a part of helping with that last summer. We actually we had people 2 people on at a time doing parking. We did not have anyone who didn't park on the Beardsley property. So I'm astounded to hear of the parking issues that they describe, because at least for that tournament, we were very careful, we planned ahead, and we managed all of the parking on site. So I just wanted to say, I hadn't planned to speak, so I'm rambling a little bit, but I feel for them. My husband and I used to live next to Capewell Park in Huntington before we moved to Monroe some years ago, and we would wake up on the weekends to the sounds of cheering and children. But we also saw it for what it was. It was cheering and children. This is America's pastime. It is not the negative. It's just not the negative that I'm hearing being described. I will also simply say, we live on the corner of Church Street. We're constantly picking up garbage on Church Street and even Founders Way, which is a short dead-end road with 8 houses. I do not know who throws trash on Founders Way. I don't know who throws it on Church Street, but it is everywhere. And I think it's possible some of it is just what we experience on all of our streets. I will conclude and simply say, my children love playing baseball in Monroe. We moved here for the community. We moved here for the opportunity for them to play baseball. Education first and foremost, but to play baseball. And it is truly a family experience. Families are there. It is wholesome, and I hope you will consider that when you consider this request. Thank you.
Jeff Olcino, 48 Arrowhead Drive. I would just like to add a couple of things as far as, I've been a part of the board 4 or 5 years now. I have never seen anybody park on Craig Drive during any of the events.
Don't do it.
That is speaking from my own experience as a coach, as someone who's run the 9-year-old tournament. 9-year-old tournament, which is being discussed, is by far when we would have the most traffic, and that is run middle of July. We have 10 or 11 teams that come, and we We try to overlap it. We have parking attendants. And as I mentioned, during my time on the board, and I can't speak for prior, I certainly can't speak to the litigation in 1975 or 1981. I've only seen the 1975 lawsuit. I've looked for the litigation. This is the first I've ever heard of a court order from 1981-82. So that would be news to me, and I'd like to see it if there
Well,
was.
you can get that from staff at the land use office.
So like I said, I was only aware of the 1975 lawsuit, but, part of that lawsuit was that, we could only use the fields, we couldn't use them on the weekends, and I can't believe that I'm seriously hearing that suggests that we go back to not playing sports or activities, kids' activities on the weekends. I mean, I think that's beyond reason. We're certainly willing to work with the community to make something work. But as I stated earlier, we are a growing program, and we're looking for options. Our first option was to go to the town and ask for Field 4 to alleviate, our space issues. As some of the members who spoke, they have since moved that and really have tried to keep it softball only. That being the only option in the entire town, our next option was to try to make Beardsley work. We made the fields bigger to accommodate it. And now we're at a point where we're asking for more time. Again, I think we're good stewards of the property. I'm a realtor, and I can tell you right now, if I live next to a park, that increases your property value.
Please address the commission.
To be honest with you, I would love to live next to a park like that, and I think that's, some of the pictures that I saw floating around. We are maintaining, like I said, we are 100% volunteer based. We do get there early. We get there early to prep the fields, to get them ready for our kids. We stay late to, again, fix the fields, pick up garbage on the fields. I do find it hard to believe, again, I think some of this is a little bit blown out of proportion as far as making us look like the bad guy. And we're here because of our kids and trying to do something better for our kids. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. What's the parking count on that property?
I'm sorry?
Parking. What's the parking count? How many cars can you park on your property?
I'm not sure. We did have it, I think, I'm not sure. We have had it lined in the past. I don't have an exact count on it. We do have handicap parking. I know that was an issue that someone raised, but we do have dedicated handicap parking there.
So you can't tell me how many cars you can park on that property?
No. I couldn't tell you with certainty how many we have parked there. It was a dirt lot. We have maintained it, improved it. We put speed humps in it. You can see those from the satellite photo you have there.
But I would like to know how many cars you can actually park on that property. Do you have anything on that, Will?
No, I do not.
When they did the concession stand, we,
I'd have to go back and look at those plans, see if that shows the parking.
I'm sure it did, because I know that was an issue back then. So Will can give you that number.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone else have anything, or?
I know that he is the last, but I do want to offer an olive branch. In my letter, I said we would welcome the opportunity to talk to the league about how to make things better. We
Okay,
would
sir, that'll be handled outside of this venue.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so just,
How many games do you actually need to play on Sunday? With the
we-
4 that you've expanded?
We would like at a minimum to be able to play 4 on a Sunday.
To play 4.
So that's 2 games on each field.
And does that include 12:30?
Well, no, because we can't,
Oh, only one of the field?
so you can see how one field is much bigger than the other.
Yeah.
The only one that can accommodate 50, 70. Now, we did expand the infield of this one on B2. So if you look at the bottom, the smaller field is B2 and the bigger field as B1, Beardsley 1, Beardsley 2. The bigger field can really only accommodate, the 11s and 12s have to play there because it's a small field for that. So 9s and 10s, which have to play there at B2. So it's a matter of, we can't put a 12-year-old team on that second field. We can only use it, that bigger field. So to answer your question, we need the ability to play 4 games at B1, the bigger field.
And is there anybody else but you there on a Sunday?
Only travel baseball. Little League takes the field Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
Travel baseball, it is I know it's hard to go between the two. We are a part of the same family, but our day is basically relegated to Sundays.
Right now, it's 12:30 to 6:30? Right?
Yeah, that's what it is, 12:30 to 6:30.
That's 2 hours a game?
12:30 to 6.
2 hours a game plus prep time. I mean, we do get, it is a fact that people do come early. It's a part of sports. People want to come earlier than the actual start time, stretch, get loose. We understand that, but we try to limit it, especially early in the morning. To address the other people using the field, it's chained, it's locked. We can't stop, kids from the neighborhood walking over and, accessing the facility. It is open, other than just your typical gate.
One more question. When you brought up Field 4 and how they removed the pegs,
Yeah.
how much does that cost to put pegs back in? Is it expensive?
It's not. We've offered to pay for it as a travel baseball, as a Little League. Like I said, the town, as Pat spoke to, the town has really kind of given that field to the softball program. I mean, it's not, it is the best of the fields in town, so I get it. It's just, that happens to be the only other field in the entire town that could even potentially accommodate us without doing some sort of, renovation to a field,
Anybody else have anything down here?
No question.
Well, what does the commission want to do? Want to leave this open to get more information, or do you want to close it?
I'd like to hear what council says about whatever that.
I'd like to submit some background material though, that isn't, some of it's in what was submitted by the neighbors. What I'm giving to you is a copy of the stipulation which was in the documents that were submitted by the neighbors. In addition, a letter, a copy of the 1995 special exception permit, which you already have in the file, and a copy of a letter from Pullman and Connolly, who are attorney at the time in 1994 to the town. It was an opinion letter submitted to Mr. Dan Tuba regarding the stipulation court agreement, which is specific to just the June 19th, 1975 stipulation. I'm not an attorney, but what Pullman Connolly's letter basically said is that the stipulation settlement is related to parties unrelated to the town, and that the town is not bound by the stipulation, nor does it enforce the stipulation. And that they could deal with zoning as they always do and issue permits as they see appropriate based on the regulations. There was, I just perused the documents quickly again, this is gonna take a little more study, but it's not clear that it's the full picture of the court documents, because one of it is that court case that's there. But the thing in 1982 appears to be a defendant appeal of a contempt order, where the Little League was not complying with the stipulation. The town, the zoning enforcement officer, and Little League was brought into court. Interestingly enough, what I just perused real quickly, the conclusions of the court was really on Monroe Little League. It didn't find anything with regards to the town or the ZEO, but it did find them in contempt and made them pay court fees and a fine. But that then followed up with somewhat of appeal, which looks incomplete. But that, we can look more into the history and finding the other approvals. I also wanted to just note, in the neighbor's documentation, which I'm not sure if we have in our records, but I didn't search for them, but I could search for them, but I appreciate being given these documents. There was the proposal by Monroe Little League back in '95, setting forth what hours they wanted, which might go a little bit to the answer of why 12:30. What they were proposing in '95 was on Sundays to operate between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. On Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to, 3 p.m. till dark, and on Saturdays, 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. The commission in '95, as is in the copy that you have in the file, they modified those hours. So where they were asking for 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays, the commission allowed 12:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. On Monday through Friday, instead of 3 p.m. till dark, it was 4 p.m. to sunset, but no later than 8:30 p.m. And the Saturday hours were exactly as they had asked. So that gives us some background as to where we started with hours and how it got to those hours.
So you're suggesting we do a little more research on the
Well,
legal
for the
aspect?
information I heard you say we don't have all those pieces, so I'll get the parking information, I'll see if I can put together a more full history of the project and of the site anyway. Is there anything else specifically that you want?
Anything else that anyone wants, information-wise?
Do you want any opinion from anyone else?
What's that?
Do you want any opinions from anyone else other than staff?
Maybe of the town attorney looking to do a legal case and make sure it's something we can vote on, or our zoning attorney.
Might not hurt to just have somebody read through it.
Yeah, no, listen, I got it.
I'd hate to vote and then find out that it meant nothing.
Okay, so then we'll continue this to the 20th. Okay? We'll take this up again on the 20th. All right, next up, item number 7, EFP 2019-02, file number 1037 and 15 Main Street, B1 District, excavation fill permit application for the excavation, removal, and export of approximately 64,200 cubic yards of excavated materials off-site to 4 Main Street, companion application EFP 2019-03, file number 104, located across the street, including general site preparation work for future potential development. 1-15 Main Street, Monroe LLC, owner applicant. This hearing is reconvened from January 16th, 2020. Yes. The commission welcomes back Commissioner Maini.
Commissioner Maini is welcome to be back.
Okay, Will, what do we have for new exhibits?
Exhibit 20, extension of time by the applicant. Exhibit 21, ART planning and zoning updated comments. Exhibit 22, updated ART town engineer comments. Exhibit 23, revised site plans by the applicant. Exhibit 24, response to comments by the applicant. Exhibit 25, response to additional comments by the applicant. Exhibit 26, alt 1 figure by the applicant. Exhibit 27, additional revised plans by the applicant. Exhibit 28, letter from the Inland Wetlands Commission agent. And Exhibit 29, updated ART engineer comments. That was all.
Okay, for the applicant.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name's Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. Office is located here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. I hope to keep tonight's presentation brief. We're here again to continue the application for an excavation permit at 7 and 15 Main Street. One of the big reasons we had to leave this hearing open after the last meeting was the discussion regarding the potential need for a wetlands permit for work associated with the driveway and some drainage installation closest to the proposed driveway location. Just to orient everybody, here's the area of the town of Monroe. This site's located just along the southern edge of the town, just north of the town line with Trumbull. Route 25 runs north-south. It's two parcels, 7 and 15 Main Street. It's across the street from the old Vichet Vitremont property. Swiss Army is located a little bit further back from Route 25. So one of the big discussions at the last hearing was the potential for wetlands to be located on 1 Main Street. We were proposing some activity connecting into Old Turnpike Road, and there was a question about wetlands jurisdiction. As we testified, we were able to secure soil scientists visited the site. We didn't observe wetlands on there. We went to the Wetlands Commission. They confirmed they had no jurisdiction, so there is no requirement for a wetlands permit for the activity. We had submitted revised plans to staff, and we were proposing some modifications to the driveway on Old Turnpike Road. We were proposing some modifications to Old Turnpike Road in the intersection with Route 25, some geometric improvements, which we think would have been a great component of the project to fix an existing road that is deficient. However, as we worked through the process with town staff, a lot of the comments that we got back from our last submission had to do with the geometric condition of that road as it existed, and really what we would have to do in order to propose improvements to it at all, and trying to bring that up to standard. So in our last response, in response to Scott's comments, we had said, we believe we're able to propose improvements here that will be a considerable improvement from what's out there today. However, it seemed as if there were some issues from a staff standpoint about what we could implement and what we need to implement now as part of this. So we had proposed an alternate. We are actually now just committing to the commission. We are going to eliminate and remove all work associated with Old Turnpike Road. We're no longer proposing any geometric improvements in that area. We're no longer going to use that driveway as our access from a construction standpoint. And we are requesting to only provide access from a construction standpoint, from an excavation standpoint, from a large-scale standpoint, out of a driveway on Main Street on Route 25. This driveway would have to get an encroachment permit from the DOT in order to access it, to start the wholesale removal of material from the property. But we think this is a much better option. It eliminates the concern regarding Old Turnpike Road, trying to bring that up to geometric standards, which frankly we are unable to do given the constraints over there. We reviewed this with town staff. We discussed this with Scott Schatzline. He actually issued revised comments today or yesterday, and he even summarized that the majority of his comments are no longer applicable if we're willing to, and we're proposing to eliminate that access on Old Country.
You'll do nothing on Old Turnpike Road?
The existing driveway that's there, which is currently being utilized as part of the building demolition, which is able to do. We are not going to do any improvements over there other than the installation of this drainage line as part of our stormwater, soil erosion sediment control, sedimentation basin, and stormwater measures. We would still install this. This would still require the road opening permit from DPW, but we are not proposing any other geometric improvements along Old Turnpike Road. As we have presented before, and it is still our intent, we may follow up with an application to provide a wholesale improvement as part of a supplemental independent application, because we think it would still be a good improvement for the town. However, we have eliminated that. We've removed that from this application. We are no longer requesting access off Old Turnpike Road. We're no longer proposing geometric improvements on Old Turnpike Road associated with this excavation permit. I think that addresses the majority of Scott's comments. I think it also addresses a large chunk, or almost the majority of Will's comments, with the exception of a few other small minor ones which we can actually talk through tonight. So we had submitted this alternate plan, again, based on the direction I think we need to go. We're proposing to change that. We can, as part of the condition of approval, we can submit all the revised plans which incorporate all those changes. One other item that Will had commented on was the proposed level spreader and spillway for this sedimentation basin, and that was located it was just on the line for the 20-foot landscape buffer, while the regulations do permit stormwater features and things like that to be permitted in the yards. It doesn't specifically say they're allowed in the landscape buffer. So we're actually we're agreeing to pull that back so it is outside of that landscape buffer. So that comment from Will would no longer be applicable, and we're happy to address that as part of the condition of approval. And again, everything else from a soil erosion sediment control standpoint, again, can all be implemented and incorporated as part of modifying this driveway to the north rather than what we're proposing to the south. Everything else that we discussed at the last hearing regarding the sections, this all still applies. However, we feel that what we're proposing at this point really addresses a lot of the concerns that existed regarding the application, at least some of the latest comments that we received, and we hope that the commission agrees with that. Again, Scott's comments that we just got yesterday basically indicated that the majority are no longer applicable, and the remaining comments can be addressed as conditions of approval. We're confident we can work through these with Scott. Again, we had a meeting with Will the other day, and I think we can certainly address any outstanding issues that Will may have had. He hasn't, I don't think he's had an opportunity to issue updated comments after our conversation, but we're hoping that we can address the minor things that still existed. I think with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions the commission has.
Before we get to questions, I'm just looking over Scott's comments. C3, where he's talking about the detention basin. Can you just comment on that?
Sure, C3. So what we had designed from a stormwater detention basin standpoint, we have, essentially it's going to operate as a sediment trap during construction, during the excavation of the project. He had concerns about the potential for water to stay there and become a wet basin, so we had modified our outlet control structure to ensure that it was above a certain elevation that could accommodate the water quality volume. However, when we routed it, Scott observed that we still had some of the storage associated with that area that may be underwater. We talked through this with Scott. We can modify our design and we can modify those calculations, and we're confident we can do that working with Scott to satisfy his comments and basically address those issues. We have, the basin itself is very large, and our attenuation was considerably reducing what was out there from a big picture standpoint. And again, from a construction standpoint, this basin really is serving as a sediment basin. However, we've also designed it to serve as a detention basin if the site's left it. So we can work with Scott, make those modifications from a technical analysis standpoint. We've already looked at it in the office, and we've confirmed we can do that, and we're happy to work through that with Scott.
So the basin is going to drain completely? You're not going to rely on any absorption since it's in ledge?
That's correct. And what we've done with Scott is even if it is wet, even if that basin fills up with water and doesn't drain completely, what Scott wanted us to do is to make sure that the inlet was above any elevation where that it could still provide for the water quality volume. So even if that basin is wet and stormwater rushes into it with sediment, the sediment will still settle. So it'll still serve from a water quality standpoint. What Scott's concern was, he didn't want us to take credit for the volume in that, and we can modify our analysis so that only taking credit for the volume above, and we can still make it work.
No. Ron, start with you.
I don't have any.
I'm just not clear, where are you discharging that water?
So we've designed this basin with an outlet, with a catch basin outlet control structure. It would be discharged into a series of catch basins and manholes, and then being discharged into a catch basin in Old Turnpike Road, which would then convey the water into a piece of property here, just follow that municipal drainage pattern. And what we're actually doing is a considerable reduction in flows that contribute to this area by the construction of this basin.
Is that groundwater or rainwater?
Superficial stormwater. Yeah, just when it rains, it runs into the basin.
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
The vehicles coming out of that new driveway are gonna take a right still, go down the road, and then a left to turn in?
Yes.
What's the driveway across from there? That's not the...
That's the old Vitramon. It's actually the northerly driveway for the Vichay parcel.
So would there be any access to where you're gonna be filling through that driveway? Would it cut across?
No, this parcel is owned by someone else under no control or common ownership with what we'd be proposing for this property.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thanks.
I think moving the driveway answered all my questions and concerns.
Great.
Believe it or not, I have no questions.
What?
I'd like to think we hit a home run. No?
What's that?
You had one question.
Oh, yeah, well, that was just in passing. All right, let's see if there's any
Great.
public comment. Anyone here would like to speak in favor of this application? Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Warner. I live at 32 Fan Hill Road. I'd like to speak in favor of this. It's right at the entranceway of Monroe, and it's currently a very unattractive area. There's a derelict house there. Monroe can emulate what Trumbull has done by locating development at the entrances of the borders of the town, and I think that's definitely a positive. That the building that they're going to bring up in grade is going to be replaced. It'll be much more attractive, and I think it'll be a great entryway to Monroe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Any general questions or comments? Back to you, Mr. Solly.
Thank you. Again, I think, just kind of in summation, I think what we've proposed is consistent and compliant with the excavation permit regulations and the POCD. We have proposed, what we're proposing is basically approval from this commission to start excavating a site to really benefit, to really create it and prepare it for future site development. We are requesting a number of waivers, which we've outlined and provided the reasoning behind. I think we've done our best to try to work with staff. Staff has been great on the application, being available to answer questions and meet with us, and we appreciate that. And we respectfully request approval from the commission.
Thank you. What do you think?
Close it.
Staff, anything else? No. Okay, hearing's closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solly. Okay, site plan review and permit amendment modifications. Item number 8, SDP 2018-02-A1, file number 128, 574 Monroe Turnpike, 574 Wines, B1 District. Permit approval amendment modification seeking conditional certificate of zoning compliance. 574 Monroe Turnpike LLC owner applicant. Will, what do we have for exhibits?
Exhibit 1, permanent approval amendment modification application. Exhibit 2, permanent inspection report by town staff. Exhibit 3, letter from owner and builder. And Exhibit 4, letter from applicant attorney. That is all.
Okay. We have someone here for the applicant.
Hello, Fernando DeAndrade, Mountainside Construction, doing the work over there at 574 Wines. I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for actually getting us on the agenda and to talk about this. Unfortunately, we're kind of pressed under the gun with the time-wise, and I can't actually, because of asphalt plants closing and weather conditions, I can't paint the outside of the building, and there's certain obstacles that have to be ironed out. We are not objecting to anything that was the town actually wrote up. Will, everyone else has been great with us. They gave us a punch list to do. We're not objecting to doing it, but we just need actually a little time until June 1st to complete it. So we're asking for temporary CO conditions so that we can actually continue to proceed forward to get our liquor license actually in place.
Okay. So does everyone understand what, they're not complete with their project, but in order to open, they're asking for a conditional certificate of zoning compliance, which would allow them to open. In order for a conditional certificate to be granted, an applicant has to come back to the commission. It's not something that can be done on a staff level. Normally, it's something that we don't encourage, but in a situation such as this, where they're limited because of the weather and, you know, asphalt plants being closed and not able to paint outside at this time of the year, the commission can consider granting a conditional certificate of zoning compliance with an end date, a drop dead date that they have to have all the work done by. So that's what they're requesting.
And that's the date, the June 1st?
That's what you're proposing? Now, if we give a June 1st deadline, that means your as-built, I mean, you have to be
100%.
100%.
Correct.
And
What's left open?
Yeah, what's left to do?
do you have a list of the work that's remaining?
The list that's
Is it
remaining.
in your file? You should have a
Yes.
copy.
It's on the drive.
Where it says punch
Right there, okay. Well, you don't have a list, I'll run through the list.
Okay.
Revise the curbing to go around the existing sign pole as shown on the approved plan. And I guess there was some confusion about what approved plan.
Correct.
This commission is concerned with the plan that we approved. Work that is pertaining to the state right-of-way, the state can overrule us on what happens in the right-of-way. But everything else on this project has to be by the plan that was approved by this commission. Okay? Revise the curbing to eliminate the first parking space at the southwest corner per the Connecticut DOT amended plan set. Provide curbing along the street side of the island per Connecticut DOT. Eliminate welding and provide painted cross-hatching per the approved plan set. Provide the painted cross-hatching adjacent to the loading space and along the rear of the parking lot. Remove and reconstruct the correct dumpster enclosure per the approved plan set. Remove all the non-dark sky compliant lighting fixtures and replace with the lighting fixtures as notated on the approved plan set. Repaint the existing building with beige or similar neutral color as notated on the approved plan set. Unbind the trees that have been planted. Provide topsoil to all the islands mounded as well as seed and hay, also noted in the Connecticut DOT email. Complete all bituminous concrete pavement work. Confirm completion of interior work. Revise the as-built to reflect, show locations of buildings, including points of access. Show canopy over the southeast corner, man door and stair stoops. Provide spot elevations of all handicapped parking spaces and adjacent crosshatched areas to confirm 2% pitch compliance. Show all new or replacement lighting on the building. Show all improvements listed above when it's completed.
The rest is just a reiteration of the condition
Okay.
of what we approved.
And The actual lighting is already completed. That was done. Actually got finished up today. The drawings with the as-built showing the canopy, the stoops, the doors, the exits, that was actually submitted this evening as well. So,
Well, you're gonna need an as-built though to be submitted once you do all the curbing work.
once we redo
Yeah,
the
once
curb
you're
work,
done,
correct.
you need to have an
It's
as-built.
gonna have to be done again.
But that as-built has to be submitted before June 1st.
Okay.
If you agree that that's
Oh, I agree.
a date that you can work with,
Yeah.
I think
As
that
long as
gives you.
weather conditions work for us, you know,
Well,
once
you have
springtime
all
comes
of May
along,
and June to do it, so.
Yeah, exactly, so it's
Actually,
not a
April,
problem.
the plant's open in the beginning of April, so
not gonna have an issue.
I think you should have plenty of time, and I think that, you know, the commission is trying to work with you and give you
And I agree
the
with
time that
you.
you need.
Yes,
So you'll be 100%
100%.
before June 1st.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So we get a date of June 1st?
June 1st.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
Just to you, it might be a little bit aggressive, that June 1st.
I don't think so. They have a little bit of curbing, a little bit of asphalt patching, and painting. And by the end of March or early April, they'll be able to start that work. So they have all of April, all of May.
He's probably confident that we can get it done by June 1st, so.
That was his.
We asked him like 2 times, 3 times already, so he said June 1st, so I think it'll be good.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're in agreement that June
I'm in
1st gives you
agreement.
plenty of time?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have
I
any
do.
questions?
Is
Ryan?
there still work that needs to be done that you're currently working on there also? Or are you guys pretty much at a standstill?
Right now, we're pretty much done with the interior. We had some odds and ends that we had to wrap up for the building department, and we actually completed them right before coming here to this meeting tonight.
So you're pretty much done with everything you could possibly do
Correct.
at this moment?
Yes.
All set.
Will, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing as far as the parking spaces or anything is gonna matter when are you guys opening? When is it opening?
Well, that's all due to the liquor commission. The whole thing was for us to try to get a conditional CO and then actually bring
So you
it to
can get
liquor.
Once we give them a conditional certificate of zoning compliance, then as far as we're concerned, they can open. If for any reason they don't complete their work by June 1st, then they will close until they do complete the work. So that's clear too, right?
Well, that's clear.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, deliberations and determinations. Item number 9, time extension, SUB 2019-10, file number 1265C, 104 Elm Street, RF1 District, 90-day extension to complete final plans. This is their final extension. We have a letter dated January 20th, to whom it may concern, regarding SUB 2019-01, file number 1265C, 104 Elm Street. I, Paul Dew, Connecticut Houses LLC, request a 90-day extension to complete required paperwork for the subdivision. Thank you. Will, do you have any update?
The hang-up they were having was, if you remember, his property was doing a lot transfer of a little sliver of land on the far end with the neighbor, and the neighbor kind of hung him up a while with actually implementing that.
Where the neighbor's septic system was.
Yeah, they did finish that, that was done, I think, last week. They did actually record those documents, that kind of now opened the door for them to finish up with what they have to do. I also were talking with their attorney recently on a few other odd ends, so hopefully they were hoping to get this done actually before tonight, but it hasn't, so I would hope that we can get this done in the next week or two.
Okay. Anybody got any other questions?
No.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 90-day extension to SUB 2019-10, 104 Elm Street.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Over here, I mean, discussion on this side.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no.
Okay, I'll call the roll.
Mayini, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
We weren't specific on which rate I was discussing.
Okay, item number 10, bond releases or reductions. 0501 SUB, file number 1216C, and 0305S, file number 1420A, RR District, Birdseye State Subdivision, EG Home. We had received, actually, if you got it, you saw it in your packet, there was a bond release report that came out on the 4th that indicated there were some incomplete items with drainage at the end of the cul-de-sac. That work, I believe, was corrected yesterday, or the day before.
How
and
convenient.
we have an updated bond release report from the town engineer dated today, where he says, note that there was a wet groundwater bleed condition at the northerly end of the northern Birdseye Road cul-de-sac that recently became apparent and needed to be corrected or addressed. This was detailed on the previous report to the P&Z dated 2/4/20. Said condition has, as of 2/5/20, now been adequately addressed and can be monitored for performance during the one-year maintenance bond period. So based on that, the bond recommendation is for a complete reduction or release of the bond. So, let's wait for Will.
He left. I think he's making copies.
Hmm?
I think he's making copies or something. I think he's making copies. Of what? I don't know.
Do we have to recommend to the town council also?
Well, that's what I want to ask Will, what, the last time we looked at this, we were making a recommendation.
Where are you going with this?
We're on the bond release for Birdseye.
Yes.
Now, are we voting on a complete bond release, or are we voting on a recommendation?
So here, so last thing I heard was that you were speaking about the updated report from the town engineer.
Right.
So if you're ready to go forward, there'd be some tweaking to this draft letter, obviously, but I'm telling you what to do. So the bullet points are the things that you would be doing.
So we're voting on a bond release notice?
No, you would be issuing, starting with the second paragraph, a statement of satisfactory completion in accordance with subdivision regulations 111-202G, along with a recommendation to the town council for acceptance of the extension of Trailside Drive and New Birdside Road as public roads, with final release of the standing performance bonds, subject to the 5 bulleted conditions. So the town council would have to accept the road. The applicant would provide a warranty deeds satisfactory to the town for the underlying right-of-way. The applicant would post a 1-year maintenance bond in the amount of $167,000, which is 20% of the original bond. They would also post a 1-year maintenance contract for the subdivision regulations 111-702, the satisfaction of the town. And upon completion of those things, the performance bond then would be released to them after those steps occur.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to release the bond based on the conditions outlined in the memorandum.
Yes.
Okay.
Move to release the bond, 05-01, SUB file number 1216C and 0305S file 1420A, based on the conditions noted in the drafted memorandum.
Second.
I can hear you.
Is that good enough?
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right, call the roll.
Mayini, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes?
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay. Meeting minutes. January 16th, 2020.
I move to accept the January 16th, 2020 meetings of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission as drafted.
Second.
Any comments, corrections?
No, sir.
Ryan, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Call the roll.
Mayini, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes?
O'Reilly, yes.
Pending application deliberations and determinations. Okay, first up, SEP 2019-11, file 1619A, 269 Purdy Hill Road, ARR District. An application for a special exception permit, site development plan for the development of an age-restricted residence community consisting of 25 attached, two-bedroom, age-restricted residential dwellings and 8 multi-unit buildings. It's on a property consisting of approximately 10.2 acres. An ARR development was previously approved under SEP 2016-11, file number 1581A for this property in June of 2017, consisting of 15 attached, single-family age-restricted dwellings. And that approval will become void if and when this application is approved. The site's not within 500 feet of a town boundary. It is not subject to a conservation easement. It's not included, does not include areas of 100-year floodplain. The site includes wetlands and the associated 100-foot upland review area consisting of approximately 1.7 acres. The site includes a small stretch of steep slopes along its southeasterly border. The site includes a single-family residence with frontage and driveway access via Purdy Hill Road, served by public water and private on-site subsurface septic disposal system. This dwelling will be used during construction and then demolished, as will an existing barn structure. Public water will be extended to the site. Access to the site will be by a single curb cut on Cutler's Farm Road. A favorable review by the Monroe Architectural Review Board was received on November 19, 2019. Public hearing was opened and adjourned on December 19, 2019. It was reconvened and closed on January 16, 2020. Subject property is zoned ARR district, and the proposed site development and related operations are residential in scale and appearance. The proposed action is consistent with the plan of conservation and development and the supplemental standards applicable to an ARR development. Proposed exterior lighting will be residential in scale and design. Each multi-unit building will be served by a subsurface sanitary septic system, which requires Connecticut Public Health Department and Monroe Health Department approvals. Compliant off-street parking is proposed. And the proposed use involves development of private property, the changes of which are not anticipated to generate significant new demands for police, fire, and emergency services. Fire marshal and police department have reviewed the project plans and facility operations, which reviews have been incorporated into the design of the project. And on this deliberation, we have Porter, O'Reilly, Mayini, Ambrosi, and Condon. So,
I also just note that the approval draft also includes the landscape waiver request, as well as an $85,000 bond.
Okay.
Move to approve SCP 2019-11 Borough Corner, 269 Purdy Hill Road, as drafted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Leon?
No.
Ryan?
Nope.
Michael?
No.
All right. Call the roll.
Mayini, yes.
Rosie, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Next up, DFP 2019-03, file number 1044 and 7180 Main Street, B1 and I1 districts. This was an application for excavation filling permit for 7182 Main Street from 7182 Main Street LLC for property located at 4 Main Street, 7180 Main Street, and about 2.5 acres of a portion of 5 Victoria Drive. The proposed excavation filling permit application seeks to import approximately 50,000 cubic yards of material intended to be sourced from 7 and 15 Main Street, filling the site to an average elevation of approximately 322 feet to support future development proposal. Site filling is anticipated to take 12 to 18 months. Approximately 2,800 truckloads of material, and that will be transported during the restricted hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Proposal seeks approval of the following waivers. Zoning section 6.4.9C. Project proposes changes in contours within 25 feet of property lines. Zoning section 6.4.9D. Project proposes artificial slopes greater than permitted within 50 feet of the property line. Zoning section 6.4.9E. Greater than permitted within 50 feet of the street line. In zoning section 6.4.9P, project proposes on-site material crushing and processing otherwise not permitted. Both 4 Main Street and 5 Victoria Drive portion are the subject property, are subject to incomplete zoning and wetlands remediation activity. Subject property is served by an unsignalized driveway via Main Street. It includes an existing commercial building which will be demolished. Site's not within 500 feet of a town boundary. Site's not subject to a conservation easement. Site activity occurs partially within a mapped 100-year floodplain for which a town of Monroe flood development permit is required. Site activity occurs within wetlands and watercourses and regulated upland review area for which a wetland permit was obtained on January 8, 2020. Public hearing was opened and adjourned on November 7, 2019. Was reconvened and adjourned on December 5th, 2019, and was reconvened and closed on January 16, 2020. This excavation filling permit will automatically expire on February 6th, 2022, unless the work has been completed prior to that. There's a wetlands remediation deadline of October 15th, 2020. And the grading waivers, the requested grading waivers is listed previously have been granted with these site plans, but shall be limited to the grading shown on sheet 2.21. Any changes or deviations shall require the prior review and approval of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission before making changes. On-site material sorting, crushing, and processing waiver. Temporary on-site material sorting, crushing, and processing shall be permitted for the duration of this permit only and in relation to fill material solely received from the abutting property across the street at 7 and 15 Main Street. Should the excavation of said properties also be approved, under a separate application. This waiver allowance does not authorize any material sorting, crushing, or processing of any other sourced imported materials, or for any more fill material than needed to fill the subject property consistent with the approved grading plan. Furthermore, this waiver does not authorize or permit any sorted, crushed, or processed material to be exported from any portion of the subject property. And trucks transporting fill material to the subject property via Main Street shall only be permitted on Main Street between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. to avoid peak commuter traffic hours. And a site stabilization and erosion control bond in the amount of $43,000. Were there any other pertinent points that I missed?
No.
And the 5 fully seated commissioners are on this application. So,
I move to approve EFP 2019-03 4 and 7180 Main Street excavation fill permit as drafted.
Second.
all right, we have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion?
No blasting, you said, right?
No, that's not true. They are going to attempt to do it without blasting, but they are not precluding blasting from their.
Oh, this
Potential.
one is no block.
No blasting.
That was, yeah.
That was the other one.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
This is just
fill.
I'm on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, this is all
Okay,
fill.
Okay.
The other one, they might blast.
Yeah.
On page 5, under the on-site material sorting and crushing, do we have to mention in there that should be clean fill? I mean, I'm assuming what's across the street is clean, but in the event that they start pulling that out and something's up.
Well, we covered some other in there.
I think on their plans, they talk about the deep fill. clean
That's,
fill.
as long as we're covered with that.
I mean, if it's not clean, they're illegal, so.
Yeah, but when they're moving it across the street.
Oh, I understand.
Right, as long as it's covered with the DEP. then.
Anything?
No, sir.
Anything?
Oh, falls, good.
Michael, anything?
Good.
All right, call the roll.
Mayne, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes?
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay. Little league, we're gonna hold on. We have. I lost something. Oh, here we go. Okay, from tonight, we have the request for a conditional certificate of zoning compliance for 574 Monroe Turnpike. We reviewed the list of issues that are outstanding. The applicant is in agreement with all of these issues, agrees to complete everything prior to a June 1st deadline. So. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the, what's it? Conditional certificate of zoning compliance for 574 Monroe Turnpike, subject to the checklist, punch list, by June 1st, 2025.
Second.
All
Good
right,
job, Mike.
We have a motion, we have a second. Again, I just want to point out that on our permit inspection report, it's checked off certificate of zoning compliance, but I want it to be clear that this is a conditional certificate of zoning compliance. Okay?
Right here. It just says certificate of zoning compliance, not conditional certificate.
Oh, okay.
All right, anything else? Any other questions, comments?
No, sir.
Call the roll.
Mayne, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes?
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay. Now,
For the fun stuff.
we close 7 and 15, right?
So you can deliberate if you so choose.
What's that? 7 and 15, Main Street. We close this hearing tonight.
The dig. Across the street.
All right, so we are on EFP 2019-02, file number 1037 and 15 Main Street, B1 District. There are a couple of things that the commission has to consider in addition to just a general overall approval, potential approval of the application. They're asking for a number of waivers. Will, can you bring up the site plan? And there had been some discussion previously about the need for some of these waivers and the appropriateness of some of these waivers.
Now, I don't have the one that he modified.
Today's.
Yeah, actually, the one that he modified with the driveway doesn't really incorporate the whole site, it's just the driveway. So we can use this, but bear in mind that down in the bottom right-hand corner where they're showing the work on Old Turnpike Road, that's no longer gonna be part of the application, and the driveway now is gonna come in at the top end of the site, up near the shooting range.
And this thing here is gonna
And
move to here.
Right, but I think we can utilize this drawing just to talk about the waivers
Sure.
that they're requesting. So first, they're asking for a waiver of section 6.4.9B, no artificial slope greater than 27 degrees to the horizontal, or maximum 2 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical shall be created. So this pertains mainly to that dark line where they're looking for almost a 6-on-1 or almost
That's what he
vertical.
said, 6-on-1.
So they're asking for a 6-on-1 slope there.
Do we have the cross section?
It's like a 12%, right?
I'll have to go into a different file for that.
Isn't that what we asked for? What did we ask for? We wanted it to be, or he wanted it kind of like that.
We're in deliberation now, so I'm sorry, but you're not seated.
We did discuss them putting in a wall.
They modified the last set of plans where they have a schematic detail for a wall if they find out that they can't maintain the face on the rock.
I think I have to go even further back.
Well, who asked for the cross-section?
I did.
Brian,
And
What do
I
you-
clarified it. I just wanted to see, I mean, obviously, it's, you know.
Well, if you look here,
Yeah.
this is elevation 359,
Mhm.
that's elevation 399.
Yeah.
They got a 40-foot cut here.
Yeah, I wanted to look at these guys and see what it looked like on the borders. Because I remember the one here, yeah, it's a cut, but it's also almost leveling with the other property. This is the big one here where you're gonna have, because right here's the shooting range, and then you have these guys, so it's just gonna be kind of a hill. I don't know.
I don't know why they're not in here.
Well, why don't you go back, Will, to the site plan, the grading plan? All right, so this waiver would entail where that dark black line is.
Best I get.
So that's about a 40-foot difference in elevation from the parking lot to the top of that proposed slope, where they're calling out for a 6-to-1. And they're saying that if the existing rock won't maintain that face, they'll potentially put in a retaining wall. So that's the first waiver that they're asking for.
And did they ever talk to the neighbor? Because I remember at one point, I thought you had brought up that the neighbor might be willing to come down also.
I don't think they talked to him, I think they gave you analysis that it didn't benefit anything.
The next one is section 6.4.9C. No change in contour shall be made within 25 feet of any property line. So this would relate to the north and the south sides of the property, where they're making grade changes almost right to the property line. And then they come in maybe about 15 or 20 feet and have a substantial drop, like 20 feet. On the north side, on the south side, it's not as severe.
And I know it's not really that relevant, but technically you're also, would be waiving it here too.
What's that, Will?
I said, it's not really that relevant given what the overall activity is, but technically the waiver also is here as well, in the middle, because that's a property line.
Right. And the third one is section 6.4.9D, no artificial slope greater than 14 degrees to the horizontal or maximum 4 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical shall be created within 50 feet of any property line.
So that's all here
Yeah.
and here.
And section 6.4.9E, no artificial slope greater than 14 degrees to the horizontal shall be created within 50 feet of any street line.
Well, 50 feet is back here somewhere.
So, what's your input on the waiver request?
Well, I think it's a difficult spot to build. And, we asked them to come with alternative plans that would show what excavation they could do without the waivers, and they were not really able to fit
Well, they weren't,
that much of a building.
they didn't want to do it.
Because they couldn't fit as big a building as they wanted to.
I think Ryan asked the question, why can't you turn the building 90 degrees?
Right.
And I think it was a relevant question, to which there really wasn't a response.
But even if they did, we would still have to grant all the same waivers because that middle property line.
Well, you don't have to grant them in the middle.
Yeah, but it would still be.
But that's really kind of an insequential thing in reality, because developing this property is gonna really take both properties. That property line's going away one day or another,
They're gonna-
so,
Yeah.
or else you'll have no building. Because you could put a building on the side of that.
Yeah, I think for our analysis right now, we make a condition that the property line goes away. That's the first thing that has to happen. So we'll treat this as one parcel.
Yeah. And then what is the real reason for those specific? I mean, you just don't want cliffs
Slopes
on
close to the
property
property
lines?
Well, you-
So people are like, you know, is that basically it?
Well, it could impact the neighboring property, you know, and that's one of the reasons. And, you know, the steepness is, you know, you don't want a 40-foot cliff
Yeah.
that you're intentionally creating.
But it's a 6-to-1 slope, right? Which is,
I don't know what
Do the
degree it
math.
is, but, I mean,
or even less.
a
That's
60,
a
they're
more
talking about
gradual
40
slope.
feet, so it would be, you know, 7 feet. 7 feet out, 40 feet high.
Okay.
It's not what you think it is. The rock is gonna be like this. It's not gonna be like this. If they could do this, they grade it.
Right.
And you'd have a lot more development potential. It's gonna be this.
Now, the one in the back where they're talking about doing that 6-to-1 slope, you know, they're also proposing to fence that. I mean, that would obviously be a strict requirement.
Right.
But with that being in
For
the
central.
middle of the site, that's not as concerning to me as the waivers adjacent to the property lines are, because that impacts a neighboring property. And again, the one where we have a waiver along the street line, you know, right now, there's an unworkable slope there.
Bless you.
There's an unworkable slope that far exceeds what our maximum is. They're looking to reduce that, make it better than it is, still not compliant, it's an improvement. So the front waiver, I could see that being beneficial in that it creates a better condition. The back one, again, you know, that's within the property, but the two sidelines, I'm concerned about.
And we didn't have the neighbors, those specific neighbors even show up, correct? We only had somebody in the back of the property,
Yeah.
right, to voice concern?
The north is the gun range.
Yeah, and like they're shooting towards that, so the backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna.
One could argue might be a
It's
good idea.
indoors, but-
It's not gonna affect the shooting.
Well, I suggested that they
Not
talk to the shooting
shooting
range
range.
people and
Yeah,
and take
yeah,
that knob out,
yeah,
but,
Yeah.
either they didn't have any luck or they didn't address it with
Yeah,
them.
because they're expanding there. And then this I don't really see as too much of a, I mean, that's bringing that down, so the drop is just because it's here. That's the property line.
Leon, what do you think?
I mean, I had a little bit of concerns about, but when you described how much the grade was inside of it, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. North and the south. So the back, I wasn't really worried about the back part of it. On the sides, like, I was, you know, I don't think the grades were that as bad as I thought they were. When you described it last time.
Okay, so you're,
I think I'm really particular. I'm good with it.
I'm okay with it.
you sure?
Positive.
Okay, that's the final answer.
Is it for $1 million?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy that they didn't, you know, try to work a little bit with us on those sides, but I'd be okay passing it.
Mike, what's your thought on the
Well, like I
waivers?
said, it's a difficult spot to build in. You know, and, it looks like it might, well, we don't know what project's gonna go in there, but I'm in favor of granting the waivers.
Well, actually, quick, if a future site, is there anything that's gonna preclude them from building next to a slope like that, or?
Well, one of the things, food for thought, that I was gonna say to you to think about, and I don't know if it really changes the application. You know, they have a plan.
Yeah.
You haven't really, you've seen a sketch of that plan, but you haven't approved that plan, so that doesn't mean that plan meets all the standards and the things like I'm gonna be a little concerned about, which can be dealt with, but, you know, once they excavate this, they're not gonna keep going, because it's gonna finish off the excavation, that's part of the whole purpose of this, right? We don't know what we're gonna find when they dig that out, right? So we're not gonna know if it's, how solid it is and whatnot. They're gonna have to stabilize it, of course, but I'm sure they're gonna wanna get really close to it too. So when you go to wanna see that, how high is that wall, Bill?
It's like 40 feet.
Yeah, 40 feet. When you wanna go and soften that wall in the back parking lot, you know, I don't know what's gonna be there to do that and how much room you need to do that. So that's, hopefully there's enough room for their building and
You mean
something that.
stabilize it if it's
No,
not
not just to
stable?
stabilize it, but, you know, if you wanna plant something in front of this wall
Oh, I see.
to soften it up, you know, so you're not looking at a 40-foot exposed rock. I just hope it's deep enough that it gets what they need and also has room for the things that they don't always plan for.
When you say deep enough, you mean far enough
Yeah,
back?
yeah, you know, because a lot of times they do those sketches, they don't really think about the green spaces as much.
Yeah.
But that's something they'll have to address, right?
Well,
Right, with an SCP.
that's the problem when you do the thing like this before you look at the plan.
You know,
You're pigeonholing it into what's there.
the thing is, if they don't, let's say they have 20, 40, 50, 60, they have like 64 or 65 feet between the building and that ledge, they have no room to plant anything, you know, because you need a minimum of like 64, 65 feet to have 2 rows of parking in a drive aisle. So, like Will's saying, hopefully they've given some thought to where this slope is located. Maybe they need to pull it back another 5 feet to have room for planting.
Right.
But that's, again, we don't have anything on
So we can't even.
the building, so.
We can't even.
And that's just on the wall side, they also need something like that on the building side too. 'Cause you
Yeah.
don't wanna just be paving right to the building.
Yeah, but that'll all come up when they come up with.
Yeah, but the issue is, we're approving a site excavation plan, we don't have a building plan. Well, like Will's saying, that if they come back now with a building plan, and we say, well, we want a 5-foot planting buffer in front of this vertical wall, and they've got no room for it,
They'll have to make room for it.
not gonna say that now, but you'll approve it without it.
That's not true.
Yes,
We're
it
not talking
is.
about the future.
Yes, it is. All right, well, it seems like the majority of the commissioners are in favor of granting the waivers, so
Not all the commissioners?
I said the majority.
Okay, I'm just.
So we'll get beyond that issue. What other issues does anyone have that they want to consider? Leon, you were asking about blasting. Yes, they said that they might blast on this site.
What they talked about first.
They were saying they.
In their very first public hearing, they said that they were not planning to blast and that they were going to try to mechanically remove all the rock. But then in the second or third public hearing, they did say that
It's a chance.
if conditions warranted, they would be blasting. So they're leaving that option on the table.
But Scott also told them blasting was probably a better solution than, because it's a cleaner face.
Well, not only that, it's a lot quicker than
So they would have.
pounding away on that rock for the next 2 years. But that's not part of what we're deliberating on. Nobody has anything to say?
I do not.
Oh, I think they addressed the drainage concerns, like all Scott's drainage and retention basin concerns were addressed
Yeah, Scott has,
as far as I can tell.
Scott has addressed that, and I guess Kevin feels that, you know, he could work with Scott on making that work. Will, what else?
I think I had two things that you need to maybe address. One is, they say in one hand, stripped topsoil is intended to be sold and removed from the property, which contradicts their general note 3 on sheet 2.31. I don't know what they responded to this, unfortunately, which states that they're gonna use the topsoil for final landscaping.
Or they might sell some of it if there's an excess.
No, it's not what it's supposed to be for.
Well, the point is that selling it, I mean, they can sell it in some ways, but selling it like retail is not, you know, from the site is not a permitted use.
Remove it from the site and sell it.
What's that?
They could remove it from the site and then sell it, right?
Yeah, I just want you to opine if that's okay and how that can be or how that can't be, so we don't get another pond view.
Are they selling from the site?
Well, like you said, and
They have been, yeah.
sheet 2.21, note number 3, it says topsoil shall be stripped and stockpiled on site for use in final landscaping. They have plenty of room on the site. They've got that access road up to the top of the hill, so they can strip it and stockpile it. Right?
Yes.
But it's a
I'm
question
with that,
of,
yeah.
Well, that's what the plan said, but then in their response, they said they were gonna sell it. So I said, if they're gonna sell it, why do they need to stop that?
Let's just note that they're gonna strip and stockpile the topsoil for use on site.
Yeah, if you remove the selling, they can still remove it from the site and then sell it somewhere else, right?
they want to be able to stockpile it, I imagine. They can always remove it, right? I mean, it's part of the 88,000 square yards.
The other thing was, with regards to reclamation, obviously their intent is to come in with a development proposal. But there's no guarantee on that, there's no guarantee of being approved, there's no guarantee on the timing. They currently have in their, what they had was that they would complete the reclamation within 2 years of completion of excavation. So that means you could sit for almost 2 years before it's, now that's sort of self-limiting, because this permit's only allowed 2 years. So I'm
But
assuming you
that
wouldn't
could
want it to be.
push that off to 4 years.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that. And you could stipulate that it has to be done within a certain time frame. But if they have an active application, obviously it could be, at bay while that's active.
Yeah. If they come in with a development plan, a permit application, that would preclude the need for reclamation.
Right, okay. I think that was about it.
Okay. Nothing else? What do we want to, how do we want to direct staff?
To approve. Letter of approval.
Yeah, that's the letter of approval.
And grant waivers?
And grant waivers.
All right, Will, you got that?
Yes, I did. You got that?
Hey, is there anything I'm forgetting about?
No.
Okay. Regulation review amendment work session.
You're not doing a little bit thing tonight?
It's not, we didn't close the hearing.
I wasn't here, sorry.
Oh, that's right.
I was outside.
Yeah.
You don't get to play on that one.
I don't get to play on that one.
Regulation Review Amendment Work Session. Since we have 2 POCD meetings next week, we're not going to plan any regulation review amendment work sessions for at least the next week or 2. I want to remind everybody that next week, on Monday, we have 2 focus group meetings for the POCD at the Media Center at Massac. Hopefully you'll all be able to attend.
The 10th?
5 o'clock.
First one is the first session's at 5 o'clock, the second session's at 7 o'clock.
On the 10th?
Monday the 10th. And then we have another one on Thursday,
Same time.
same time. First, there's 2 sessions on Thursday. The first one is at 5 PM, the second one is at 7 PM.
That's the 13th? Yep.
Yes. And each session has a specific topic that we will be reviewing. We've invited people from different agencies and departments to join us in those sessions.
You said that was at the media room.
Pardon me?
You said that was the media room.
Yeah, that's the library, right?
Yeah, correct.
Massac Library. Also, correspondence other received. On the agenda for our next meeting is the EMS service facility. I received a letter from Enid Lapellis regarding a 824 municipal improvement, referral to Planning and Zoning Commission. On January 27th, 2020, in accordance with the standards and procedures set forth in Connecticut General Statute 8-24 municipal improvements, the town council voted affirmatively to refer the above referenced matter to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and report. A summary of the referred proposal follows, as more fully detailed in the special exception permit application separately submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Proposed additions and alterations to the existing Monroe Volunteer Emergency Medical Service Facility located at 54 Jockey Hollow Road, situated within a residential and farming District 1. The proposal includes a building addition of 1,900 square feet at the front southeast corner to be used as a new training classroom, and a building addition of 2,000 square feet to the front southwest corner to be used as a day room and staff offices, as well as interior renovations of existing space. Proposed complete reconstruction and expansion of paved parking and driveway areas within the site. Parking is proposed to be expanded to include a total of 64 spaces. Proposed associated improvements related to site drainage, complete reconstruction of septic, new oil water separator and holding tank for the garage floor drains, modification of existing gas and water service lines, interior electric work, and landscaping. Excuse me. Thank you in advance for your consideration of this referral, and the town council looks forward to your report recommendation. Excuse me. So we'll be looking at that at our next meeting. Now, speaking of our next meeting, I'm just going to bring this up. Is there anyone who knows that they will not be here at our next meeting? That's on
I will not be here.
20th? Michael will not be here. Okay. It's the 20th. The 20th.
I mean, I will be recusing myself from that specific one.
All right.
Along with,
I will not be here.
Oh.
That's 3 people out here?
That's 3. The 20th?
I'm in.
You're here.
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
Should we consider
We should
moving
move
our
that
meeting
one.
to the 27th?
I'm gonna have to recuse on that
because,
meeting.
yeah, we have 2 other people that are on the building committee for EMS, so they're gonna have to recuse themselves from that too.
Yeah, we got the,
We're not going to have a quorum for that application.
all right, unfortunately. It's also the hearing. That's okay. That's no
On
problem.
the 20th?
Yeah. All right, so we can, well, if we don't have a quorum, it doesn't matter, so we'll, it's gonna-
Well, I will be here, I just can't.
Yeah, well, even if you were here, you recuse yourself.
Well, no, for the special exception permit, for what?
You guys can.
Oh, for the EMS building, gotcha.
So, yeah, we'll have to, we'll have to
27th is
postpone that.
PCOCD again.
Yeah, the 27th.
PCOD.
No, we'll have to move it to March.
Otherwise, if we don't do it the 27th, then it's gotta go to March 5th. And our next meeting is.
Correct.
No, the meeting on the
You can't do it on the
27th,
27th.
that's
This is a
not a
focus
P and Z meeting, that's a POCD meeting.
Yeah, so we need to.
Oh, I don't have the 27th, we have a POCD meeting?
Yep, and the 24th.
All right,
So then we don't have any more meetings.
then
We're off to
we're not
March.
gonna have a quorum on the 20th
Okay.
for that application.
I understand, so, okay. That's good, then we'll send notices out to the neighbors, we'll take it upon ourselves to do that, let them know it's gonna get moved. We're convinced we don't have a quorum, right?
Well,
You're not
Michael's
here.
not gonna be there, I'm not gonna be there, he's gonna recuse himself.
Dominic and me.
Oh, that meant,
We'll
so,
have 3 people.
okay.
Dominic gotta
So the
recuse
following
himself,
meeting
too.
in March,
Yes, I'm gonna have a quorum.
what are we looking?
Can't do the 27th.
No, no.
so
March
the
5th.
March 5th, the regular meeting.
That's the regular meeting.
You'll
I
be
can
here?
sit in and not understand.
You'll be here, Bill will be
Yeah,
here,
you
Neil will
have
be
to
here,
recuse
Drew will be, so we'll have
yourself.
those 4 and
And
Ron.
There's no financial gain, that's the only.
He
thing.
doesn't get paid for working
Yeah,
on
they
Little
don't
League.
either, yeah, well,
What'd you say, Glenn?
me?
March 5th.
I was just counting who would be here on March, you would have
March
5
5th,
on
we would
March
have
5th.
enough.
You'd have 5, yeah.
Yeah,
If one of you weren't there, we'd go with
Ron,
4.
you have to come though.
I'm good.
so are we gonna
No, no, I won't ask.
cancel the meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just-
oh, are we gonna cancel the meeting altogether?
Yeah,
We could. There's nothing else really on it that I remember.
You're gonna have to cancel.
Little League.
Oh,
continuation, yeah.
Oh, Little League.
Continuation of Little League.
But
Still
then,
have to
okay,
recuse
but
himself too.
then I have to recuse myself for Little League.
Just from that, not from the.
So it
meeting.
sounds like we're,
No, but then you don't have anybody. He's not here, he's not
Yeah,
here.
on the 5th, on the 20th.
yeah, he's not here, so that's, so I guess we're canceling that meeting.
All right, so we're gonna cancel the meeting on the 20th because we just.
No one's here.
We don't have enough people to, really, okay, do anything. So Will, you'll notice that
Yeah.
probably, let everyone know.
Take care of that.
All right. Commission reports, I've reported all I have to report. Any other commissioners have anything to report?
No, sir?
No? Staff?
Okay, my town planner's report, ZBA was canceled February 4th, their next meeting is March 3rd. Nothing from the siting council. As the chairman indicated, we held our last regulations subcommittee on Monday, February 3rd, and we discussed the text amendments on the auto sales use, continued discussion on the post-text amendments for Stevenson lumber, and started the discussion on mixed-use zoning. Zoning citation program, we have 3 cease and desist orders that were upheld. These 3 orders have been referred to special counsel and are at different levels of progress. The 45 Pepper Street's been referred to special counsel. They are working with staff to, because this is a little bit more complex, because this is also involving the Pepper Street reconstruction. So we're working on an agreement. 268 Garter Road, property owner appealed the ZEO action, and ZBA upheld it, and now there's a lawsuit on that. And 595 Main Street, that is before special counsel to take that to the next level.
What is that?
That's storage of commercial vehicles. They
The
parked.
cell, the cell on Gardner Road.
No, we're talking about the one on Main Street,
Where?
the old tire center.
The
Big tractor trailer in the
the
back.
yellow painted
Yeah.
tires. The boat.
Next item, anti-blight, 685 Main Street, staff finally got a hold of the owners. They now want to wait till spring before the demolition. Building department has an application. They just haven't taken it to the next level to execute it. So we finally got a hold of them. They plan on having that removed. It's really falling down. It's got to be addressed.
They might not need any machines by the time they get there in the spring.
Well, we have a big ice storm, you're right.
Just park a dumpster alongside.
Hopefully it falls in.
Planning matters, as the chairman indicated, we start our focus group meetings, starting with next Monday, 2 sessions, 5 and 7. And then the next one is Thursday, the 13th, also at 5 and 7. Staff has been contacting all the chairmans and/or vice chairmans, organizations. I think we're having a pretty good turnout. We're gonna have chairs for 30 to 40 people. We're gonna have a main table that will accommodate the whole committee and staff. And Francisco Gomez, the consultant, will be taking the lead in guiding the discussion that we'll be having with all the various departments and boards and commissions. And as the chairman indicated, we're going to cancel the 20th meeting, no special meetings. And building permit activities, we issued 2 single-family dwellings. That matches last year. So we're at, and that's at the Birdside subdivision that you just released the bond on. So we'll see everyone next week. We got a lot going on.
Are you gonna report the findings in the town? The findings in the town. Should really be on the meeting next week. Are you gonna report together for us yet? I thought you were gonna look at the whole town.
About what?
About, you know, what to do in town and this and that.
Well, that's part of what they're working on.
So they have something together for
I
that?
don't know.
Okay.
We'll find out.
I don't think.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
9:38. We are adjourned.